I hired a woman to clean my house while my family was out. About an hour later, she called and whispered, "Ma'am, is there anyone else in the house?" I froze. "No." "Why?" Her voice shook. "Because there's a woman upstairs." Those words cut through me like ice. From that moment, my life was never the same. That morning had started like any other. The sky over Savannah was bright and the air smelled of salt from the coast. I wanted to clean before the heavy riff ras. I wanted to clean before the heavy riff. When it rains here, the air feels thick and the dust never leaves. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to make the house shine. I thought it would be a normal day. I was wrong. As I wiped the living room window, my phone buzzed. It was my childhood friend, Yvette. We had not talked in years. Her cheerful voice made me smile. She said she was passing through Savannah for only one day and wanted to meet me for coffee. I hesitated. The house was a mess. But then I remembered Brie Brie. The house was a mess. But then I remembered Brie Free, Brie Brie. She often helped people clean to pay for college. I called her and she said yes right away. I told her, please clean the study, the stairs, and be careful with my husband Jerome's old shelves. She promised she would. I left her a spare key and asked her to lock up when she was done. Everything felt fine when I drove away. At the Magnolia Tree Cafe, Yvette and I sat under a big oak tree. We talked about her children and my quiet life. For a while, it for children and my quiet life. For a while, it for children and my quiet life. For a while, it for... I thought she was done. I answered with a smile, but heard only fast, shaky breathing. "Miss Simone," she whispered, "is there anyone else in the house?" My stomach dropped. "No," I said. "Why do you ask?" "Because there's a woman upstairs," she said. She walked down the hallway and disappeared. My hand shook. I told her, "Get out right now. Lock the door. Wait outside." I hung up, told Yvette there was an emergency, and ran to my car. As life as a system, as lush, sensitive, as arshaj as the net, as an fnosh, a wedge as an tingash. That's what she had to do. Every ring when I called Brianna again felt like thunder in my ears. She did not answer. I imagined the worst. When I reached home, a police car was already outside. Brianna sat on the step, pale and trembling. I ran to her. She could barely talk. 2 officers came out of the house. They said they had searched everything. No one was there. No doors broken. No windows open. All locked from inside. They found nothing. But I still felt cold inside. Brianna whispered peevery. Brianna whispered. Brianna whispered. Brianna whispered. Brianna whispered peevery. Brianna whispered. Brianna whispered. A woman in a long white dress. She just vanished. I believed her. She was honest and calm, not the kind to invent stories. Then Jerome arrived. He looked surprised but calm. When I told him what happened, he smiled faintly. "It's an old house," he said. "Reflections, shadows, tricks of the eye." Brianna lowered her head. I wanted to defend her, but his calm voice made me doubt myself. Maybe he was right. I paid her, thanked the police, and detect police. And said of police, and to police, and teaches. But I could not shake the feeling that something was watching me. 3 months later, I retired from work. Life became quiet, too quiet. I began to notice sounds at night. At first, they were soft, like something rolling on the floor above. I told myself it was the wind or wood shifting. Then came footsteps. Slow, heavy. Then a chair scraping, paper rustling like someone turning pages. I told Jerome one morning at breakfast, "I hear noises in the attic, as I hear noise in the attic. I hear noises in the attic, and the doors in the attic here." He didn't even look up from his newspaper. "It's rats," he said. "Old house. I'll buy traps." The next day, he set big metal traps under the attic ladder. After that, the noises stopped. For a while, I felt calm. But then strange things began to happen again. One morning, I opened the fridge. Half of my spicy sausage was gone. Jerome never touched spicy food. When I asked, he said, I just wanted to try it. He smiled, but his eyes looked to try it. He smiled, but his eyes looked to try it. He smiled, but his eyes looked to try it. He smiled, but his eyes looked sheep. I said nothing, but something inside me felt wrong. Then one weekend we went to Charleston. When we returned late that night, I went to wash my face. The bathroom floor was soaked. Water everywhere, drops still sliding down the shower wall. I called Jerome. He looked once and said, probably rain through the vent. But it had not rained. Maybe the pipe's leak, he said. Don't worry. He never called a plumber. The floor stayed dry after that, as if Ned dry after that, as if Nez, as if Ned. It didn't. It made me more afraid. A week later, I decided to clean his study. The shelves were thick with dust, stacked with papers. When I lifted a pile, it fell to the floor. A drawer popped open with a click. Inside was a small brown notebook, old and worn. The writing inside was neat, soft, clearly a woman's hand. Page after page of story ideas. The words sounded familiar. Too familiar. They were just like Jerome's novels. My heart beat. He said it was a waste of time. So whose notebook was this? A friend's? A fan's? I put it back and closed the drawer quietly. I told myself to forget it, but I couldn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a creak in the hallway. I looked toward the attic. The door was slightly open. A cold draft slipped out, smelling of dust and old paper. I woke Jerome. He groaned and got up. When we reached the hallway, the door was shut tight again. He kissed my forehead and went back to bed. I stood there staring at the door. The air felt heavier than before. Over the next weeks, Jerome changed. Every night around 10, he said, I need to work in the study. Don't wait up. He stayed up late, sometimes until dawn. One night, I woke up thirsty at 1. The bed was empty. The sheets were cold. I checked the study. The computer was off. The chair was pushed in. Jerome? I whispered. No answer. I win. I win. I win. I win. Nah. I win. Evan wins. Then I heard soft steps from the stairs. I looked up. Jerome was coming down barefoot, moving quietly, holding a porcelain plate. When he saw me, he froze. The plate slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. It was clean. No food, no crumbs, just washed. What were you doing up there? I asked. He bent down to pick up the pieces. I couldn't sleep, he said. Needed quiet to think. Took some food with me. I helped him pick up the fizz. Took some food with me. I helped him pick up the fizz. That night, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the silence that filled the house like smoke. The next morning, Jerome dressed neatly in a gray suit and carried a small suitcase. I need to leave for a few days, he said. Atlanta. Inspiration. He had never left without planning before. Before he walked out, he turned to me. His hands gripped my shoulders. While I'm gone, don't let anyone in, especially not Mr. Sterling from the publishing house. Especially not Mr. Sterling from the publishing house. That's like Sterling, so I said tunes, who I. Then asked him and I, if he comes, tell him I went away and you don't know when I'll be back. His voice was calm but cold. I nodded, though his words scared me. 2 hours later, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Mr. Sterling and a young assistant. I hesitated, then opened the door. He didn't wait for me to speak. Miss Whitlock, he said, I know Jerome is here. The manuscript is 2 weeks late. I repeated what Jerome told me. He went to Atlanta. 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 He went in. He went to Atlanta. Mr. Sterling laughed bitterly. Your neighbor said the attic light is on every night until 3 a.m. Don't lie to me. His words hit me hard. The attic light. I had never noticed. Why would there be light if we never went up there? I showed them out politely, but my heart was racing. The attic again. Always the attic. That evening I couldn't rest. My thoughts spun like a storm. The noises, the food, the notebook, the water, the light. Everything pointed to what? Everything pointed to what? Fear turned into a strange calm. I had to know the truth. I went to the shed behind the house. The smell of dust and oil filled my nose. I found the old folding ladder. It was heavy and rusty. I dragged it inside, step by step, until it stood under the attic hatch. My hands shook, but I climbed anyway. The latch was stiff. I pushed hard until it gave a loud click. A cold breath of air hit my face, smelling of old wood and paper. I turned on my phone. I turned on my phone. I turned on my phone. The light cut through the darkness. I saw boxes, old furniture covered in sheets, spider webs hanging like gray curtains. The air was thick and still. My heart beat so fast I thought it might burst. Then the light fell on something that didn't belong. A small table, a chair, a weak oil lamp burning. Someone had been there. Someone living there. And then I saw her. A woman sat with her back to me. Her long white hair hung loose. She wore a torn white dress. She was ray. She was rasher. She was ras. She was rasbrin. She was ras. She was rasher. The pencil moved softly, the sound like breathing. My throat closed. "Who's there?" I said, my voice shaking. The pencil stopped. The woman turned her head. Under the dim light, I saw her face, pale and thin, and my whole body went numb. It was Alana, my sister. The sister who had vanished 30 years ago. Everyone believed she was dead. I couldn't move. My knees weakened. She stared at me with wide, tired eyes. Her lips trembled. Sister Simone. Sister Simone? Sister Simone. Sebaristukasiso. My sister, alive, sitting in the attic of my own house. I wanted to speak, but no words came. She looked fragile, like a ghost. Around her were piles of paper, empty cans, a thin blanket, and a bucket. Signs of a hidden life. I reached for her hand. It was cold and light, almost weightless. Tears filled my eyes. "Alana," I whispered, "come downstairs." She tried to stand. Her legs trembled. Step by step, we went down the ladder together. We went down the ladder together. We went down the ladder together. Her face winced at the brightness. She looked around like someone seeing the world after years in the dark. I helped her sit in a chair and brought her water. Her hand shook so hard that I had to hold the glass for her. She drank slowly and began to cry, deep, silent sobs that came from her soul. I held her and cried with her. My mind raced. Why had she been here? Who had kept her here? And what did Jerome have to do with it? I wanted Ansa. 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 Wanted Ansa. All such a tease. "You're home." She looked at me with eyes full of pain and said softly, "I never thought I'd see you again." I took her hands and said, "Tell me what happened." She closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "It started 30 years ago," she said. "That night changed everything." Her words sent chills down my spine. I knew the truth she was about to tell could destroy everything I believed about my life, my marriage, my home. I could feel it. The storm was only set. The storm was only E. 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 Because what my sister told me next was darker, crueler, and more shocking than anything I had ever imagined. You won't believe what really happened in that attic. Stay with me. You need to hear the rest. When my sister said those words, my whole body turned cold. The lamplight flickered against her pale face, and I could see how fragile she was, how every bone showed beneath her skin. 30 years lost inside an attic. 30 years of silence. I could heart years of silence. I could heart years of silence. I could heart he. Alana, I whispered, please tell me everything. She looked down, her fingers twisting together. It started that night, she said softly. The night Darren died. I froze. Darren Albright, her old editor. The name was a wound I thought had healed decades ago. She went on in a trembling voice. He called me to his apartment to talk about my book. I trusted him. But he was drunk. His eyes were wrong. He tried to touch me. I told him to stop. He wouldn't. I panicked. I grabbed something heavy from the table, a small statue. I just wanted him to stop, Simone. I hit him once. Only once. He fell. He did? He did. 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 Her voice cracked on that last word. I covered my mouth. My sister's tears ran down her face, leaving thin tracks on her dusty cheeks. I didn't know what to do, she whispered. I was shaking. I wanted to call the police. Then Jerome came in. My heart stuttered. Jerome? Yes, she said. He said he came to invite me to dinner at your house. He saw everything. He told me to keep quiet. He said he would fix it. For you. My head spun. He would fix it. For you. My head spun. She what? He. My head spun. He won. My head spun. See, and for you. He had said she ran away, that no one knew where she went. Alana's eyes filled with fear. He said if I turned myself in, you would suffer. He said the newspapers would ruin your name. He said I'd go to prison forever. I believed him. He told me to wait. He took Darren's body and buried it. Then he brought me here, your house, and said I had to stay hidden until things calmed down. He locked me in the attic. He said it was only for a few weeks. Hiroshi said it was only for a few weeks. Her injuries. Her ulcer. He said it was only for a few weeks. Her R. I felt sick. I could hardly stand. I thought of Jerome's gentle smile, his quiet voice when he read his novels to me by the fire. My husband. My partner. The man who said he loved me. My chest tightened. You're saying Jerome kept you here? In our attic? All these years? She nodded, tears falling silently. He said he was protecting you, but he needed something from me. My writing. When he saw my notes, he took them. He said the world would never rebut him. He said the world would never rebut. He said the world would never rebut. He told me he'd publish them under his name. For you, he said. For your comfort. He said you'd live well, and that would make my pain worth it. I could hardly speak. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Jerome's books, the awards, the interviews, the money, all of it stolen from my sister's hands. Alana lowered her head. I didn't want to write for him, but he threatened me. He said if I refused, he would tell the police everything. He said if I refused, he would tell the police everything. He said you'd lose everything. So I wrote. Every night. Every story. He'd come up quietly, take the pages, and tell me what the readers thought. He said people loved my work, but he never said it was mine. I pressed my hands to my face and wept. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of the old clock on the wall. When I could finally speak, I asked, why didn't you ever try to run? Alana la, Mona lay, alala la, wa. But he locked the attic door with a heavy latch. The window was too small. He said he would kill himself if I escaped. I believed him. I thought he loved you. I didn't want you to lose him because of me. Her words stabbed deep. I realized I had been living with a stranger, a man capable of kindness in daylight and cruelty in the dark. I sat beside her, holding her thin hand. It's over, Alana. You're free now. We'll go to the police together. Then we'll go to the police together. We know. We'll go to the police together. We will for pussy. We judge. We key. Wait, what if they don't believe me? What if they call me a murderer? They'll believe you, I said. You suffered enough. I'll make them understand. That night, neither of us slept. I gave her one of my dresses. She looked in the mirror as if she didn't recognize herself. The color had left her hair long ago. Her eyes looked older than her face. Still, when she smiled faintly, I saw the girl I used to know. Morning came gray and quiet. I made breakfast art. I made breakfast art. I made breakfast art. I made breakfast art. Around 9, I drove her to the police station downtown. She sat beside me, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the passing streets. Every sound made her flinch: the honk of a car, a barking dog, a child's laugh. 30 years of silence had turned the world into noise. When we arrived, I asked to speak to the head detective. At first, they didn't believe us. Then I said her name, Alana Whitlock, and the room changed. One officer's eyes widened. One officer's eyes widened, widened, and engaging. One officer's eyes widened, engine in and out run wise. She said she's. One officer's eyes widened, and everyone thought she was dead. They led us into a small room with gray walls. Alana told her story again, her voice steady now. She spoke of Darren, of Jerome, of the attic. The officers wrote everything down. One of them left the room to make a call. Hours passed. Then they returned with news. A team was already searching our house, and another was headed to the woods near the Ogeechee River. They wanted to see if Jerome's secret grave was real. I held Alana's R. I held Alana's R. I held Alana's R. I held Alana's R. I felt Alana's R. Her fingers were cold but steady. She seemed almost peaceful, as if speaking the truth had lifted a weight from her chest. By afternoon, the results came. They had found human remains buried beneath an old tree by the riverbank. The DNA matched Darren Albright. The officers looked at Alana with new eyes, no longer as a suspect, but as a survivor. They promised to find Jerome. They asked where he had gone. I told them Atlanta. They sent out an LA. They sent out an alley in LA. They sent out an LA. That evening, when I got home, 2 police cars were already parked outside. Mr. Hamilton, our neighbor, stood on his porch watching. He said Jerome had returned just an hour earlier, looking tired. The police surrounded the house quietly. He didn't resist. He just lowered his head when they cuffed him, as if he'd been waiting for them. I watched from the gate, my heart breaking. He didn't look at me, not once. Later that night, an officer called. Joe Jalt. Jolisho. Jalvin. Jolis. Joshua. Joe Hurst. Later that night, an officer called. Joe. Jals. Jalvisarge. Jalvin. Lady. He admitted everything. The murder cover-up, the years of imprisonment, the stolen writings. He said he did it all to protect his wife's peace. Peace. That word cut me. What peace had he ever given me? I had lived beside him for decades without knowing I was sleeping above a prison. The next day I went to see Alana at the detention center. She had been placed there temporarily while the court decided what to do. When she saw me, she smiled what to do. When she saw me, she smiled she's mildew. When she saw me, she smiled till, after all these years locked away, this small cell feels almost free. There are windows, people, light. I pressed my hand against the glass. You'll be free soon, I told her. Everyone knows the truth now. She nodded. Thank you, sister, for finding me. We talked until the guard said time was over. Before I left, she said quietly, if something happens, promise me you'll find my last book. It's under the table in the attic. The one about the table in the attic. The one about A cold voice from the police station told me Alana had taken her own life during the night. I dropped the phone. The room spun. The world felt hollow. I couldn't breathe. They said she left a letter for me. When they handed it over, I held it for a long time before I could open it. The envelope smelled faintly of dust and ink. Her handwriting wavered, but it was hers, the same delicate script from the notebooks. "Dear Sister Simone," it began. "Dear Sister Simone," it began. "Dear Sister Simone," it began. "The Sister Simone," it began. "So, for 30 years I wrote so I wouldn't disappear, but I could never write under my own name. I lived as a ghost, and now it's time for that ghost to rest. Don't be sad. Think of it as the end of my story. In the attic, under the table, there's a box. Inside is my true book. Please let it be published under the name Lucia Whitlock. That was the name I once dreamed of using. Remember me with love, not with pain." I pressed the letter to my chest, the letter to my chest. The police trial began soon after. The news spread fast. The ghostwriter of Savannah, the papers called it. Cameras, reporters, endless questions. I didn't go to court. I couldn't. Seeing Jerome would have been like looking into a mirror filled with lies. He was sentenced for kidnapping, fraud, and obstruction of justice. The judge's words echoed through the news for days, but no punishment could give me back what I lost. One evening, after everyone left and the house was silent again, I climbed back up to the attic. The same wooden ladder creaked under my feet. The air was still heavy, but it no longer felt like fear. It felt like memory. Under the table, I found the box Alana had mentioned. Inside were sacks of handwritten pages tied with string. The first line read, "To the sister who searched for me even when she didn't know I was lost. I sat on the flossed. I sat on the flaw and flossed. I sat on the flaw." She wrote about our childhood, about the sunlight through the trees, about the dreams we once shared. She wrote about the night everything ended, about the loneliness, about hope that refused to die. When I finished, I knew what I had to do. I would publish it, not as Jerome's work, not as a ghost story, but as the truth. I contacted the publishing house. At first, they were hesitant, afraid of the scandal, but when they read her manuscript, they called me in tears. "This is a masterpiece," the editor said. "We'll print it under her name. The world needs to know who she was." Months later, the book was released, The Light Above the Attic. Months later, the book was released, The Light Above the Attic. But the attic was late, so the attic. People wept reading her words. They wrote letters. They said her courage gave them hope. Her face appeared on magazine covers. Schools added her story to their lessons. For the first time in 30 years, my sister's name shone in the sunlight. I often went up to the attic after that. I cleaned it, painted the walls, opened the window. I placed her books neatly on a shelf. The place that once held darkness now glowed with light. Sometimes I'd stand there and whisk light. Sometimes I'd stand there and whisk. Sometimes I'd stand there and whisk. Sometimes I'd stand there and whisk. But freedom comes with questions that never stop. One night, as I sat alone reading her last chapter again, I noticed something strange at the bottom of the page. A faint line written sideways, almost hidden in the margin. It said, "Not alone." He wasn't the only one. My heart skipped. What did she mean? I looked closer. The handwriting trembled, smaller than the rest, as if she'd written it in a hurry, afraid someone might see. Not alone. He fiend. He sat alone. He. I felt a chill run down my back. Could there have been someone else involved? Another person who knew? Another person who helped keep her locked away? I tried to dismiss it as a tired woman's confusion, but the words burned in my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing echoes from the past, the police saying Jerome confessed, the way Mr. Hamilton always seemed to watch our house, the way he once told me, Jerome works too hard at night. I thought about the light in the attic that never went out. Could one man alone have managed it for decades without help? The question grew heavier the longer I stared into the dark. Maybe Alana's final secret wasn't just about Jerome. Maybe someone else had been walking those stairs after midnight. And maybe that someone still was. Because that same night, As I sat downstairs clutching her letter, the attic light flickered on by itself. Someone else was still. Someone else was still. Stills was still. Someone else was still. Someone else was still. Still. And this time, I was the one being watched. The light flickered once, then stayed on. A faint yellow glow seeped through the cracks in the ceiling above me, stretching across the living room floor like trembling fingers. My heart started pounding so hard that I could hear it echo inside my chest. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. I just stared up at that light, waiting to hear footsteps, a sound, anything. The house was completely still, yet something about the house was completely still, yet something about the house, think about the chap. I whispered to myself, it's just a wiring issue, that's all. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That light had been off for weeks. I had turned it off myself. Slowly, I reached for my phone, my hands trembling. The screen glowed pale blue against the dark. I scrolled to the police number, ready to dial, but then I stopped. What would I say? That a light turned on by itself? That I felt watched? They'd think I was imagining things. I took a deep breath. They'd think a deep breath. I took a deep breath in. I took a deep breath. A deep breath. A deep breath. The wooden banister was cold beneath my hand. As I reached the landing, I could see the faint glow spilling out from under the attic door, soft and flickering, as if someone had lit a candle inside. My throat tightened. I forced my feet to move closer. The old ladder leaned against the wall, right where I'd left it. I climbed slowly, every sound magnified in the silence. The closer I got, the stronger the smell became, old paper and something else. Stronger the smell became, old paper and something else. Something, something else. So closer and something. That smell didn't belong to me. It wasn't Alana's either. I pushed open the attic door, my heart hammering. The hinges squealed softly, and the air inside felt colder than the rest of the house. The little lamp on the table was on. Its flame danced in the draft. The attic looked the same as I had left it, except for one thing. The box of Alana's manuscripts was open. The pages were scattered on the floor, as if someone had gone through them in and gone through them in and in. Recently. Then I heard a faint creak behind me. The floorboard. I spun around, holding up my phone light, but there was no one. Just the old furniture and the hanging cobwebs swaying gently in the air. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer. My breathing came faster. I backed toward the ladder, still holding the phone light out in front of me. My hand brushed against something on the table, a small folded paper. I picked it up. Small folded paper. I picked it up. The baby. It up. I see the V. The V in the P. The LV. The LV, the C. The equity Z. It was too neat, too sharp. It said, "You're not safe here." The words blurred in my vision as a cold wave ran through me. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped it. I turned off the lamp, climbed down as fast as I could, and shut the attic door. The latch clicked into place, but the sense of being watched didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights on, clutching the note. Every sound made me jump: the hum of the refrigerator, the distant hoot of an owl, the faint ticking of the wall clock. Around this, I decided I couldn't stay there alone. I called Mr. Hamilton. He was our neighbor, always polite, always curious. He answered on the third ring, his voice slow and gravelly. "Simone, what's wrong?" I hesitated. I think someone's been in my house." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Stay put. I'm coming." 5 minutes later, he knocked on my door. I opened it quickly, grateful for another human presence. He stood there in his thick robe, holding a flashlight. "Show me," he said. We went upstairs together. The hallway felt colder than usual, like the house itself was holding its breath. When we reached the attic ladder, I pointed to the door. The light was on, I said, and I found this. I handed him the note. He read it under his flashlight. I handed him the note. He read it under his flashlight. Who would write this? That's what I want to know, I whispered. He looked at the latch, then up at the door. Let's take a look. I wanted to stop him, but the words wouldn't come. He climbed up and pushed the hatch open. For a moment, everything was still. Then I heard him gasp. Good Lord, what is it? I called. He didn't answer right away. Then his voice came down, low and tense. You'd better come up. My legs trembled as I climbed on. On the far wall, someone had written a message in black ink across the wooden beams. The letters were jagged, uneven, as if scratched by shaking hands. It said, "He's not the only one who came upstairs." The words looked fresh. The ink was still wet. I staggered back, pressing a hand to my mouth. Mr. Hamilton stared at the writing, his brow furrowed. Someone's playing a cruel joke, he said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. We searched the attic again, moving boxes, lifting old sheets, peering into the corners. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of anyone. When we came back down, he turned to me. You should stay somewhere else tonight, he said. You've been through it enough. I nodded weakly. Maybe I'll go to my friend Yvette's. But when I went to grab my car keys, they were gone. I looked everywhere. The counter, the table, the key hook by the door. Nothing. I just had I'll probably misplaced them. I'll drive you. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to get out of that house. As we stepped outside, I noticed something strange. The attic window was glowing faintly again. I froze. Hamilton turned to look. The light went out instantly. Probably the wiring, he muttered. But I saw the way his jaw tightened. He drove me to Yvette's house, just 15 minutes away. She was surprised to see me so late, but she welcomed me in, made tea, and insisted I sleep in the guest room. For the first time in days, I felt a little safe. But that feeling didn't last. The next morning, I woke to a notification on my phone. An unknown number had sent me a picture. My stomach dropped when I opened it. It was my living room. The picture had been taken during the night. The timestamp read 2:17 a.m. In the call, 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 in the calls, in the call, in the call. A person standing by the staircase. I called the police immediately. They sent officers to the house, but again they found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. They asked if I had enemies. I said no. They asked if I was sure Jerome was in custody. I said yes. They arrested him weeks ago. Still, they promised to send a patrol car by that night. Yvette insisted I stay with her longer. I agreed, but my mind kept going back to the phone. Later that afternoon, I received another message. Same number. This time, no image, just text. It said, check under the floorboards. He wasn't alone. My hands shook so much, I dropped the phone. Yvette, I said, I have to go back. She tried to stop me, but I couldn't ignore it. When I reached the house, 2 officers were waiting outside. They followed me in, cautious. I showed them the message. One of them, a young man named Harris, nodded. Will young man named Harris nodded. Will doesn't will tintinint will let him. What It's just that it's was. Will does us. Will trenend nerdy. They started in the living room, tapping, listening for hollow sounds. Nothing. Then we moved upstairs. When Harris reached the hallway near the attic ladder, his boot hit something that sounded different, thinner, emptier. He crouched down, pried up a loose plank. Beneath it was a small wooden box. He lifted it carefully and opened it. Inside were old photographs, black and white, faded. The first one made my blood run cold. It was Alana standing beer, standing beer, standing beer, standing beer. The handwriting on the cover wasn't hers or his. Harris frowned. Who's this third person? I looked closer. Standing just behind them, half in shadow, was Mr. Hamilton. My stomach twisted. The next photo showed Jerome and Hamilton together, shaking hands beside a typewriter. A woman's arm could be seen in the corner of the frame, Alana's. Harris looked at me. You know this man? He's my neighbor, I whispered. He's the one who helped me. The officer's expression hardened. Stay here, ma'am. He stepped outside to call his partner. I sat there frozen, staring at the photographs. How could it be? Hamilton. He'd been next door for years. Always friendly. Always helpful. A sudden noise made me jump. The back door creaked open. Harris? I called. No answer. The wind? No, it was too slow, too careful. Footsteps moved through the kitchen. I backed away, gripping the edge of the stair rail. Then a shadow appeared at the end of the hall. Simone, a voice said softly. It was Hamilton. 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 He stepped into the light, his face calm, almost kind. You shouldn't have opened that box, he said. My throat went dry. You were helping him? He smiled faintly. Helping? No, Simone. I was protecting the work. Alana's work. Jerome couldn't have done it alone. He was brilliant with words, but not organization. I handled everything, the publishers, the drafts, the deadlines. Without me, none of it would have worked. None of it would have worked. I shook my He nodded slowly. Of course. I visited her when Jerome was away. Brought her food sometimes. She didn't always know it was me. He made her think I was just another of his helpers. Tears burned my eyes. You kept her there. You both did. He sighed. She didn't understand. The world didn't deserve her writing. Jerome and I made sure her stories were seen. Isn't that what matters? You imprisoned her, I shouted. He tilted his head. Alm shouted. He tilted his head. Alm shmevalish. He tilted his head. Alms yo. You don't see it yet, do you? You live in the same prison now. The only difference is your bars are made of guilt. I tried to move, but he stepped closer. I never meant for it to go this far, he said quietly. But now you've stirred it all up again. People asking questions, reporters digging. I can't have that. Fear surged through me. I turned and ran toward the door, but he grabbed my arm. I screamed, kicking, clawing at his hand. He tried, screamed, kicking, clawing at his hand. He tried to squats. He tried to tries, he tried. He tried to try explore. He tried clawing at his hand. He tried to try said Katuch. He tried. Just then, the front door burst open. Harris's partner rushed in, gun drawn. Police! Hands where I can see them. Hamilton froze, his grip loosening. I stumbled back as they tackled him to the floor. His calm face twisted into something dark, something feral. You'll regret this, he hissed as they cuffed him. You don't know everything, Simone. There's more. Much more. When they dragged him away, I sank to the floor, shaking. For a long time, shaking. For a long time, I'm shaking. For a long time, we're shaking. For a long time, we're. There were still a few left. I picked up the last one. It was a picture of my house taken from the outside, long before we moved in. In the window of the attic, a small figure stood looking out. It wasn't Alana. The handwriting on the back said, she wasn't the first. My fingers went numb. I looked up at the ceiling, at the attic door that still hung slightly open. A chill crept down my spine. How many lives had that attic held before ours? And who lucils? And who crept down before ours? And who litits, and who attic hopis ukien husal? The truth I thought I'd found was only the beginning. Because sometimes when I sit alone at night, I still hear the faint creak of footsteps above me. And now I'm no longer sure if it's memory or if someone is still up there, waiting. For days after Hamilton's arrest, I couldn't bring myself to go near the attic. The police sealed the room for investigation, leaving a strip of yellow tape across the hatch. But even with it shut, I still heard sounds, owns. Every night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, waiting for the house to breathe again. The newspapers called it the Ghost Writer case. Strangers sent letters to my door. Reporters parked outside the gate, and television vans idled on the street. They all wanted interviews, photos, quotes. But I didn't want to be a story. I just wanted silence. One evening, as the sun went down, I made tea and sat in the living room with the curtains drawn. The how. The how, 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 the thing as the sun went down. I kept telling myself the noise above was nothing, just wind or the old beam settling, but it never quite sounded like that. It sounded alive. I tried turning on the radio to drown it out. The music helped for a while until I heard something else, a faint whisper, not from the speakers, but from the hallway. Simone, I froze, the teacup trembling in my hands. The voice was soft, almost kind, but it came from upstairs. I put a frislashiti. It came from upstairs. The house went quiet again, as if holding its breath. I told myself it was imagination, grief, exhaustion. I had lost too much, my sister, my husband, my peace. My mind was tired. Then the voice came again, clearer. Simone, come up. It was a woman's voice, familiar, but not Alana's. I took a deep breath and walked toward the stairs. Each step groaned under my weight. The shadows seemed to lean closer. When I reached the top, the air grew close. The air grew tumlushes. The air grew tumush. The yellow tape over the attic hatch fluttered softly, though no window was open. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. I climbed up just far enough to see through the crack. The tape was torn. My flashlight beam swept across the room. The boxes were still there, the old furniture, the table. But something new caught my eye, a book lying open on the floor, pages fluttering as though a breeze passed through. I stepped closer and knelt beside it. The handwriting wasn't a close, the handwriting wasn't a. The first line read, "My name is Eleanor Marrow. I write this in fear, for I do not know if I will see the morning." A date followed, 1927. My hands shook. This house had been built in 1924. I flipped through the pages. The writing grew frantic. He watches me. He says my stories belong to him. The attic is my cage, but my words will escape. It was the same story, almost the same words, written a century before, written a century before, written a century before, written a century before. Or had this happened before, again and again, to women who wrote too well for their time? That night, I called Detective Harris. He came the next morning, tired-eyed and patient. I showed him the book. He examined it carefully, turning the brittle pages with gloved hands. "Where did you find this?" he asked. "In the attic. It wasn't there before." He frowned. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said firmly. "The police searched that place. They would have found it. The police searched that place. They would have found it. As Nistic Keats. They would have found it. We'll take it to the lab. See what we can find." But when he lifted the book, a folded note fell out. He picked it up and read aloud, "She is still here." The words were written in fresh ink. Harris looked at me, his face pale. Who would have written this? I had no answer. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the teapot steaming on the counter. My thoughts kept circling back to the attic, to the voice, to the woman from 90, to the voice, to the woman from 90, to the woman from 90 seen to 90 to the from the one from 90 T Not I'm a D. To the woman from 19cc. What informant sky? A woman with dark curls and a white nightgown sitting at the same table where Alana once wrote. She lifted her head and looked straight at me. Her eyes were gray and empty. He never left, she whispered. He never leaves. I woke gasping for air. The room was dark. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming until I heard it, the faint sound of a typewriter. Tap, tap. It came from above, from the attic. I grabbed the flashlight and my phone. 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 What's the tone? Zangief? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the light steady. When I opened the hatch, the sound stopped. The air was cold enough to see my breath. I shone the beam around. The table was covered with papers again, dozens of them, all filled with words I didn't recognize. The typewriter sat in the center, a sheet half finished inside. The last line read, "She comes again tonight." I backed away slowly, my pulse racing. I left everything as it was, and I left everything as it was. And it left everything as it was, and left everything as it was, and it waited Jevi Yua and Nehia and Ola. The next morning, Harris returned with the results. The old diary was authentic, ink and paper from the 1920s, but the fingerprints on the newer note didn't match mine or Alana's or Jerome's. They matched no one in the system. He looked uneasy. You might want to stay somewhere else for a while. I tried, but the house kept pulling me back. It was my home. It was Alana's. It was where everything had happened. I couldn't just walk away. Everything had happened. I couldn't just walk away, or I couldn't just walk away and hating. I could just walk away. The each had dream year off show. Get up. The days passed quietly, but the nights were alive. The tapping sound returned, faint at first, then louder. Some nights I heard footsteps above my bed. Once the attic light turned on again at exactly midnight. I started leaving a recorder upstairs. Each morning I'd listen. Sometimes it caught whispers, sometimes laughter, once a soft humming of an old tune I didn't recognize. Then one morning, as I played back the tape, I heard something that made night. Then one morning, as I played back the tape, I heard something that make draw laws. Then morning, as I, Simone, a voice said clearly, "You're writing my story now." It wasn't Alana's voice. It wasn't Eleanor's either. It was my own. I dropped the recorder. My reflection in the dark TV screen looked like a stranger. My lips moved, but I didn't hear myself speak. For a long moment, I couldn't tell if I was awake or still dreaming. That day, I went to the public library, desperate for answers. I asked for old records of the house. The librarian, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, led me to the archives. "Not many people come asking about that property," she said softly. "It's had a history." She pulled out a file so dusty it looked untouched for decades. Inside were old newspaper clippings. I flipped through them, my hands trembling. One headline stopped me cold. "Local author's wife found dead in attic, 1928. The article described Eleanor Merrow, wife of Nar Merrow, wife of Unar Merrow, wife of Na eating Nwich in Yankapeder. Whatala, just nothing horror. She was found lifeless at her desk, surrounded by unfinished manuscripts. The husband vanished days later. No trace was ever found. Beneath that, another article dated 1954, new owner claims to hear typing in empty house. It happened again and again every 30 years. A new writer moved in, a woman with stories, a husband or partner who helped her. And every time, someone disappeared. By the time I reached the last clipping, my hands were shaking so badly the paper tore. The final headline read, "House sold to couple Jerome and Simone Whitlock, 1994." My own name stared back at me from the page. I left the library in a daze. The world outside looked normal, sunlight, traffic, people walking their dogs, but everything felt different. I wasn't just living in that house. I was part of its pattern. That night I packed a CS that night I packed a CC pattern. That night I packed a sis to see a CCC as CC. CCC ding. CC Allah. That night I packed a CNCL. But when I went to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. The lock turned, but the door stayed stuck as if held by something on the other side. The windows wouldn't open either. Every latch jammed tight. I tried calling Harris, but my phone showed no service. The air grew heavy, thick, humming with a low vibration that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Then the light in the hallway began to flicker, fast, like a heartbeat. From upstairs came the slow screech train. I forced myself to climb, one step at a time. "Stop it," I said aloud, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. "I know what you are." The attic door was wide open. Inside, the table was set as if waiting for me, fresh paper in the typewriter, a single chair pulled out. A candle burned beside it, its flame perfectly still despite the draft. A note sat on the paper. My name was written on it. I stepped closer and read, "Finish the Uller, finish the ear, finish the Uller, finish the ear, finish the Uller, finish the all, finish the ear, finish the ear, finish the ear soon." Sanjin wait what the teen. Vijars was closer and read, "Finish the day." I wanted to run, but something in me couldn't move. I sat down. My fingers hovered over the typewriter keys. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the keys pressed themselves. TAP, words appeared on the page, letter by letter. She finally understands. The house doesn't keep ghosts. It keeps writers. The candle flickered, though there was no wind. I whispered, "Who are you?" The typewriter answered, "You are." I stumbled back. I stumbled back. You. I stumbled back. I stumbled back. A candle went out, plunging the room into darkness. I fumbled for the latch, but it wouldn't open. I banged on the door, shouting for help. No answer. Only the soft rhythm of typing behind me. When the door finally gave way, I ran downstairs and out into the yard, gasping for air. The sky above was gray, the first drops of rain falling. I turned back to the house. The attic window was glowing again, but this time I saw a silhouette standing there, airy. Silhouette standing there, airy in film. I ran to the neighbor's house and called Harris. When he arrived with another officer, the light was gone. They searched the attic. No papers. No typewriter. No candle. "Are you sure you're all right?" Harris asked gently. I nodded, though I wasn't. The next morning, I decided to leave Savannah. I sold the house to a distant couple who seemed unaware of its past. I packed Alana's books, the photographs, and the old diary. Everything else I left behind. But as I loaded the last box into my car, something caught my eye. A single page fluttered against the front porch, held down by a rusty nail. I bent to pick it up. It was from the typewriter. The same ribbon marks, the same spacing. The words read, "Stories never end. They wait for new voices." I folded it and slipped it into my coat pocket. I drove away, watching the house shrink in the rearview mirror. For miles, the road was empty. The rain, 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 the recurrent. By the time I reached the next town, I felt calmer. I stopped at a small motel, checked in, and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come. Around midnight, I heard a familiar sound, the faint, steady tapping of a typewriter. It was coming from the next room. I knocked on the wall. "Hello?" No answer. The typing stopped. Then softly, 3 knocks came back. I sat frozen until dawn. When I finally gathered the courage to check out, the motel clerk I went. "No one," she said. "That room's been empty for months." I left without another word. I kept driving north, stopping only when I reached a small coastal town in Virginia. I rented a cottage near the sea. It was quiet, peaceful. I thought maybe, finally, I could rest. But that night, when I unpacked, I found the folded page from the porch sitting on the table, even though I had left it in the glove compartment. It wasn't folded anymore. It wasn't folded anymore. It was, and below the old words, a new line had appeared, written in fresh black ink. Welcome home, Simone. The wind outside rose, rattling the windows. The faint smell of old paper filled the room. Somewhere in the distance, faint but clear, I heard the tapping begin again. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, patient, endless. I walked to the window and looked out into the dark. The ocean waves glimmered under the moonlight, but just beyond the glass, reflected faintly in the pane, I saw her, the woman from the attic, standing behind me. She smiled and whispered, "It's your turn." At first, it was only one line on the page. I told myself it must have been a draft I forgot, something I wrote in half sleep. But every time I looked away, another word appeared, slow and deliberate, as if an unseen hand were guiding. As if an unseen hand were guiding. I left it behind in Savannah. Yet there it sat on the desk in my rented cottage, black and waiting, the same dent on the ribbon cover, the same faint scratch on the side. I stepped closer, whispering, "How did you get here?" The keys clicked once in answer. TAP. The ribbon moved by itself. A new line formed. You never left. My skin prickled. The air smelled of old paper again, the scent that had followed me since that night. I backed away untamed. I backed away untamed. I backed away untamed. The sea outside roared louder, as if the tide itself wanted to drown the sound of the keys. I clutched the sheet in my hands and forced myself to speak. I'm not writing anymore. Do you hear me? The typewriter paused, then one key struck 3 times. T-A página, T-A página, T-A página. 3 slow knocks, the same rhythm I'd heard through the motel wall. I grabbed a blanket and threw it over the machine. The room went silent. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark, listening to the storm build outside. When I woke the next morning, sunlight filled the room. The blanket was gone. The typewriter sat bare again, gleaming softly. A new page waited inside, words already printed across it. Good morning, Simone. Let's finish the story. I tore the page out and crumpled it, but another sheet slid automatically into place, ready. I pulled the plug from the wall, even though it wasn't electric. The keys still trembled like breathing. I packed a bag and left the cottage. I drove for hours, heading inland until the air no longer smelled of salt. I stopped at a small diner, shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee. A waitress, kind-faced and motherly, noticed. You look pale, huh? Oh, just tired. She poured more coffee. Long drive. Yes, I said. I'm trying to leave something behind. She smiled sadly. Aren't we all? When I went back to my car, the trunk was slightly open. Inside, on top of my suitcase, lay the same crumpled page I had thrown away. I stared at it, then at the empty road stretching ahead. There was no one in sight, yet I felt the same presence, the same slow pulse of eyes watching. I got back in and I got back in and solve ushing. I got back in asking. I got back in and the words had changed. Running doesn't help. You carry the story with you. I ripped it into pieces, tossed them out the window, and drove again. By nightfall, I reached a small town on the border of Pennsylvania. I checked into another motel, double-locked the door, and left the typewriter, if it somehow appeared again, outside in the car. I didn't even look at the trunk. Sleep came in short bursts. Each time I drifted off, I dreamed of the attic. The same desk, the same candlelight, the same figure in white, her face hidden behind a curtain of hair. She was writing. Her hands moved fast. When she looked up, I saw my own face. I woke screaming. The hotel clerk knocked, asking if I was all right. I told him it was just a nightmare. He didn't believe me, but left anyway. When I turned on the lamp, the mirror on the wall had fogged over, though there was no heat, no steam. Words were written there. Words were written there. Words were written there. The words came back. Almost done. I left the motel before dawn. For the next few days, I kept moving. Cheap rooms, gas stations, nowhere long enough to unpack. Yet everywhere I went, it followed. a napkin at a cafe with the words "Keep typing," a bus ticket stamped with Savannah. Once, a stranger at a rest stop handed me a folded note and said, "Someone dropped this." Inside were the same 5 words, "You can't stop the ending." I began to also "Tu can't stop the ending." I began to tuted, "Tu can't stop the ending." I began to saf. I began to tu. Excuse I as tu. Or I began to do to me indicate to. Maybe this was what Alana felt in the attic, caught between guilt and madness, between truth and imagination. One evening, I stopped at a small roadside chapel. The doors were open, candles flickering inside. I sat in the back pew and whispered a prayer I hadn't said in years. "Please," I said, "I don't want to be part of it. Let it end." A voice answered softly behind me, "Endings are for books, not for you." I turned. No one was there. 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 No one was thee. No one was they. I ran out into the night. When I reached the car, a single page rested on the windshield. Rain dotted the ink, but the message was clear. Home is waiting. I knew what it meant. I drove back to Savannah. Every mile felt heavier than the one before. By the time I reached the outskirts of the city, the sun was gone and the streets were slick with rain. The house stood dark against the horizon, the attic window faintly glowing. I parked across the road. I parked across the road. Wing shay. The attic shay. But the front door was already open. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The furniture, the dust, the silence. Only one thing had changed, the faint sound of typing coming from above. Tap, tap, tap. I climbed the stairs slowly. The attic door stood wide. Candlelight spilled down the ladder. When I looked inside, the typewriter waited at the center of the room. Papers covered the floor like fallen leaves. In the middle of them sat a singa. In the middle of them sat a singa ladius. In the middle of them sat a singa. At least I thought it was Alana. Her hair hung in long gray strands, her face pale and distant. She didn't look up when I whispered her name. "Alana." She kept typing. I stepped closer. "Please stop." Her voice was soft. "Can't. It's not me anymore." I reached out to touch her shoulder. My hand passed through her like mist. The air around her was cold, dense. She turned her face toward me. For a heartbeat, she looked just like she did before Evji. For a heartbeat, she looked just like she did before Evji, before FD. The face became someone else. Eleanor. Then another woman. Then another. Each vanished like smoke. I stumbled back, tripping over a pile of papers. My eyes darted across the scattered pages, each one filled with lines in different handwritings. Some elegant, some frantic. Hundreds of voices, all telling the same story. The attic whispered. 100 faint breaths overlapping. "Finish it, Sime." I pressed my hands to my ears. "No." The typewrite. The typewrite. The typewrite. The typewrite. The typewrite to the skti. One letter, then another. My own name appeared across the page again and again until the paper overflowed with it. Simone, Simone, Simone. I grabbed the machine and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall, but instead of breaking, it landed upright on the desk again. The keys continued to move. "You can't break what isn't yours." My knees gave out. I crawled toward the stairs, but the door slammed shut. The air thickened, heavy with the smell of dust and ink. The candlelight brightened until it burned white. In the glare, I saw them, dozens of women, their outlines faint, their faces half-formed her. One stepped forward. Eleanor. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. "We tried to tell you," she whispered. "It doesn't want to let go. It never did." I shook my head. "What is it?" She pointed to the desk. "The story. It feeds on us. Every word we write, it takes a little more. Then how do I stop it?" Her expression softened. You can't stop a story, Simone. You can only finish it. I stared at the blank page waiting in the typewrite, page waiting in the typewrite. I stared at the blank page waiting in the typewrite. No, I said. I won't. But my hands moved on their own. The keys clattered faster, the sound filling the attic like rain on a tin roof. The words spilled out faster than I could see them. I tried to pull away, but something invisible held me there, my body rigid, my heart hammering. Once upon a time, there was a woman who thought she could escape her own story. The letters burned as they formed, glowing red before fading to black. My breath came shawthingak. My breath came shaw the tea shaw. My breath came shaw. The attic fell silent. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting at the desk. The typewriter was still. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I saw the reflection in the glass, someone standing behind me. Not Eleanor. Me, but older, paler, with eyes that didn't blink. I turned. The chair behind me was empty. The reflection smiled. I ran to the door, but it wouldn't open. My reflection still smiled as I pounded on the wood. Finally it spoke, though its lips barely moved. You finished it, Simone. Now it's yours. The glass shattered. I fell back, gasping as the shards hung in the air like floating dust. In each one, I saw faces, Alana, Eleanor, all the others, each whispering the same line. We are the story now. The shards dissolved into light. When I woke again, I was sitting at the desk, hands poised over the keys, hands poised over the keys, hands poised over the keys, hands poised over the keys. The dust was gone. The papers were neatly stacked. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. A man's voice called up. Hello? We're the new owners. Anyone here? A couple appeared in the doorway, a smiling woman with a notebook in her hands and a tall man carrying a box. The woman gasped when she saw me. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't know someone was still here. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. My throat was filled with silence. The man frowned. Are you all? Are you all? Are you all? Are you are? Are you oh? Are you all? My hands were pale, almost translucent. When I looked down, I could see the desk through them. The woman stepped closer, curious. Is that an old typewriter? Yes, I said, but she didn't hear me. My voice was a whisper in a world that had moved on. She reached for the machine. It's beautiful, she said. Maybe I can use it for my stories. I tried to warn her, to scream, but my words came out as a faint sigh. The keys of the tie, the keys of the tide as a faint sigh. The keys of the tie, the keys of the tie that ties the woman smiled. It still works. Her husband laughed. Maybe it'll inspire you. She placed her hands on the keys. Let's see what it wants to write. The first line appeared. Once upon a time, there was a woman who moved into a quiet old house in Savannah. Her face lit up. That's perfect, she said. I wanted to cry, to beg her to stop, but my voice was gone. My body was gone. Only the faint smell of ink and sea salt remained, and sea salt remained, and sea salt remained. It remained the faint smell of ink and sea salt remained, Andren, Ainshao. Only the faint smell of ink and sea salt remained. Ming Joe, she said. Ali ink. The story continues. The woman kept typing. And somewhere deep inside the walls, beneath layers of wood and memory, I felt myself settling into the house's heartbeat, the rhythm of the keys, the endless pulse of creation. Tap, tap, the quiet eternity. They will say the house is haunted. They will be right. But it isn't ghosts that linger there. It's stories. And now I am one of them. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me through this star. Thank you for staying with me through this star. This star. Thank you for staying with me through this star. Tell me, what would you have done if you were in Simone's place? Would you have stayed and faced the truth, or would you have run from the house forever? I truly want to know. Share your thoughts down in the comments. Your words mean more than you think, and they help this small channel grow. If this story made your heart race, if it made you feel something deep inside, please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next. Your support helps me keep bringing you more life stories, mysteries, and secrets that you'll never forget. On your screen right now, you'll see 2 more stories that people say gave them chills. Click one and keep the journey going. You'll love what happens next. Thank you for watching, thank you for your kindness, and until next time, remember, some stories never really end.